my name is Vanshika, and this week I am here today to speak with Aman, who has published his latest book, Armed Struggle: The Alternative History of Indian Freedom Struggle. For the sake of our viewers, let me give a brief background about Mr. Aman. Mr. Aman is an engineer who has worked for several years in San Francisco, California, for the Oracle Corporation. Currently, Mr. Aman lives in America. Over to you, Aman.
Hi, Vanshika. Thank you for your lovely introduction. Vanshika, as we are stressed for time, do you think it's a good idea we play the book trailer? This way, your viewers can go ahead and get an idea about the book, and that way we can then cruise into the conversation about the book. What do you think?
Yes, I think that is a very good idea. So here you go.
Okay, great.
That's an interesting trailer. I can't wait for you to explain to us more. Can you give my viewers a brief on the background about this book? Who exactly are these three different characters and how are they connected to the Indian freedom?
Yeah. So one of the things, Vanshika, over the last 15 years of my career, I have traveled to many different lands, and gone to many different countries. And there have been three events in my life which I could never connect to each other. And I'll explain you that three events and then how the book builds up, and how I actually wrote the book. Um, the first event was I was in a meeting in London, not downtown London, but a neighborhood of London. After the meeting, I was walking back to the tube station and I came across a place called India House. And I first thought it's a consulate, but that didn't make sense because, why would a consulate be in a suburb of London? It's there. Then I thought it must be a sanstha, which does some activity related to Indian. It was not that. Um, so I called up the office where I had a meeting, and I asked them that next nearby on the same street there is, this particular house. What is this about? So they told me that well, this house is not a consulate. This used to be an Indian hostel back in 1900s, 1901, and back then there were Indian students who used to live here, and they were there was a bomb making factory inside. They were taking Indian flags and promoting the idea of free India in Germany. It had connections with the India Paris Society, which was also doing same things. So it was like a European headquarters of the Indian freedom struggle. I said, what are you talking about? Indian freedom struggle, European headquarters, and bomb making factory? And it didn't make sense. Anyways, I thought it must be some, forgotten chapter, and the story ended. Um, Interestingly, during that time, I had also moved to San Francisco downtown, in an area called Pacific Heights. Pacific Heights is a neighborhood of San Francisco where it's west of the Golden Gate Bridge, which is the famous red color Golden Gate Bridge. And just 2 streets away from my house, I used to see a lot of people from the Sikh community going in and out of a building. One day I went up and I actually asked that, what is this place? Is this a gurudwara? What is this? Is this like an office? What is this place? And what's really happening in this particular building? Well, they said, this was an Indian hostel in 1910. I said, Indian hostel? They said, yes. There were Indian students who were living here, who were studying at Stanford and Berkeley. And there was an Indian professor at Stanford who was organizing a revolutionary movement to overthrow the British. And he jokingly told me it was not Google, which was the first startup, a revolutionary idea at Stanford. He says 1910, 1912, there was another movement which was started where, we were trying to build an army. And I said, what are you talking about? I have never connected with this story. He said, yeah. This story has been completely ignored by the Indian history textbooks. But for us, the Sikh community, this story is it's to the heart. For us, it's a very proud moment of our legacy in California. I said I could never connect one and two. Then I actually came across another event, and I had a Japanese girl who was working for me. And one day she bought me for lunch Indian curry, for lunch. And we were all used to have lunch together. And I asked her that, how do you know Indian curry? I have heard the Brits knowing Indian curry, but for a Japanese person to know Indian curry, I've never heard, because your food is very different. She said, no. I have a very deep connection to India because my grandfather was friends with an Indian cook in Tokyo. And this Indian cook was a freedom fighter who had escaped from India, and made it all the way to Tokyo. And at a restaurant, he started serving Indian curry, and he became so famous that he was almost a household name in Japan. And he's saying even today that restaurant makes his curry, although that person is no more, that cook is no more. And I said, very interesting. Tell me more about this person. So he said this person also, along with the Japanese government at that time, built an army of Indian soldiers in Tokyo. Said, what are you talking about? I have never heard this story about somebody, building this. Anyways, I could never connect these three events together. Yeah, I said nothing. Last year, I took some time off, and I said I want to read Bhagavad Gita. And although I'd always heard of Bhagavad Gita from my grandmother, verses of it, but never really read it as an entirety. So I decided I'm going to take this 2 weeks and, read Bhagavad Gita. And it was great. I just read this while I was on holiday. And one question intrigued me there. Where were the Pandavas of the Indian freedom struggle? How is it possible that we can get our freedom struggle without shedding of blood? So we don't know about Bhagat Singh, we don't know about Subhash Chandra Bose, but the way the history is presented to me, at least in my education, I don't know how is it right now, is that these were random events. They were not kind of connected with each other, how the history. So I started digging. I said, let me look up British Parliament records and see if I can find something just out of interest. And very interestingly, I saw the speech by Prime Minister Attlee on March 15th, 1946. And he says a very interesting line there that I wish to give India the freedom as speedily as possible. And I'm sending a cabinet mission. That did not strike me. I said, why would you try to give India as speedily as possible? There is no hurry. We are a non-violent movement, right? The Quit India movement had practically not been very successful, which was being there. And it just didn't make sense. That word speedily kept haunting me. I said, why is the word speedily being used? And that's when I started doing the research. And believe me, I was able to connect that speech with the Japanese cook, with the Indian professor at Stanford, and then with the India House in London. And I found that, my God, there was an arm movement, and it was like a pearl of necklaces where they are all part of the same string. It was like an Olympic torch which just kept burning from one event to the other event. So although it took a lot of hard work, because I had to read a lot of old books, old literature, although I am from San Francisco, so it was fairly easy for me to get that information. And I called up a few Sikh friends, and then I connected how that story is connected to London, how those two connected to the Tokyo Cook, how the Tokyo Cook is connected to the word speedily. So in all, I can't reveal the whole thing, but this is like a story which is interlinked with each other. Yeah.
Definitely. I love how this is so interesting. I love how you've drawn on personal examples to explain the story so simply and beautifully, especially for our generation. So, can you tell me more about these connections?
No, I can't, because I believe you're reading the book as well, right, Vanshika?
I
Right?
am, yes, I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The problem is if I tell you more, I will actually kill the suspense. The beauty of this is how these events are connected with each other, how these different people are connected with each other. And the cloud which I had in my mind, that this arm movement or the revolutionary movement were like these independent, like almost like activities which were happening in and out, within the span of India. I never knew it was connected. You know how these
Yeah,
different people are all part of the same chain. That was interesting, and that's the this basically is an alternative view of the Indian freedom struggle. Is I wanted to highlight this movement.
definitely. I cannot wait to read the rest of it.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Aman, can you tell us why you wrote this book?
Well, I think the history of our people who got us our freedom needs to be said. And I realized when I was doing research of this book that just like Mahabharata, Ramayana, and then many centuries later, many years later, Shivaji along with Tanhaji, and then Tarabai, Rani Lakshmibai, Rana Pratap, they just kept fighting. We've had a fighting tradition. We have fought for a civilization. And I think the last 50 years of our independence, that means 1900 to 1945, was no different. We fought. We fought with valor. And the story needs to be said about our forefathers, that although there was Mahatma Gandhi ji who got us our freedom through non-armed movement, there was also another movement which existed. So although you could say that I don't subscribe to your story, which is fair enough, but look at the facts and then decide. And after that also, if you feel it is just binary movement, it's fine. But if you feel that there was this movement also perhaps which contributed, perhaps I have changed your view. So for me it was just to tell the story of our forefathers, who fought, you know
Makes
and
sense.
document
Makes
that
sense.
in one book, and in one integrated fashion. Yeah.
Okay. So lately, we feel a lot of wrong narratives of our history textbooks need to be corrected. But
Yeah.
how exactly do we learn about more of the correct narratives?
Sure. No, I understand that, and I think I also had faced this question. Well, in the US, there's a gentleman by the name Dr. Rajiv Malhotra, who I believe is based out of New Jersey, and he runs a foundation called Infinity Foundation. He has written many books, including Breaking India Forces. He is to the goal of decolonizing the Indian mind. He says India is a free country, but still our education system, our narratives have not been corrected to the degree it should be corrected. Of course, we have corrected a lot of narratives, but not to the degree. And for the last 25 years, I must say this person has fought relentlessly. So I'll include his link in the YouTube channel link in the comment section. Whoever is interested in knowing about the correct narratives of our Indian civilization, no better starting point than that. And then then there are many different YouTube channels who are trying to correct it, but his work stands out to me personally speaking. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Aman, for having this conversation with us. Thank you so much to our viewers for viewing this. That is the end of our conversation for the day. Guys, please buy this book. It is available only for rupees 19 on Google eBooks, and it's also available. The hard copies are also available on Amazon. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Vanshika. I appreciate you doing the interview. Take care.